Howdy, everyone. Sorry I'm a little sweaty. I got caught in traffic. I'm coming from Orange County, so.
Know that feel?
Woo! It's warm outside. Are you guys all seriously here to watch some cartoons? Yeah! All right, we're not going to watch whole episodes, but we're just going to watch a lot of cool crap that I grew up with as a kid, and not a lot of people really remember. I'm sorry for the swearing. I'll try to keep it down. Just a little rush. So my name is Chris Eaton. I'm the assistant editor of a site called therealmcast.com. I host several podcasts on there, and I also run another little podcast called the C.A.G.E.Addicts podcast. So if you guys like giant monsters, head on over there. So pretty much, I have an obsession with cartoons. I was a cartoon junkie as a kid. How many other people here are cartoon junkies? All right. So I take it everyone here likes Transformers, G1. Everyone likes G.I. Joe, Thundercats, all that wonderful stuff. I'm here to talk about the stuff that stuck with me as a kid that not a lot of people were like, oh my God, hey, I remember that. This is the stuff that I go out of my way to find a DVD when someone like Discotic puts out only like 5,000 copies of it. So pretty much for the next 45 to 50 minutes, I'm just going to be rapping on about cartoons. You guys want to pipe in, just please shout out. It's just me up here. There's nobody else going to be up here, and we're just going to have some fun, all right? Yeah. So let's get started. So I'm going to start from the 80s, going into the 90s. I want to cap off with a few things that I love myself. So let's get started with, who remembers this little ditty?
As close as we can be, high in the mountains or deep in the sea. Bionic six, we're all together, we fight for right. Bionic six, we are so proud to be a super future family.
A family brought together by fate and given superpowers through the miracle of modern science.
Bionic six, we are together, we fight for right. Super future family, and we're so very proud to be Bionic six.
That was a staple of every animation. Oh, I got the landing. Sorry. So that was the staple of a lot of 80s opening shows where it's all just main animation. There's no in-between, so everything looks beautiful and spectacular and Japanese and awesome. Then when you actually watch the show and they sent it off to like Korea for all the in-between stuff, you're like, oh wow, they really cut some corners here. But that did not stop a show like Bionic 6, which ran for like 65 episodes, from being completely awesome. Essentially, all the producers did was rip off $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman and gave him a family, all of the Incredibles. He had an origin episode. He wasn't Lee Major's character, but he was pretty close to it. And
Adopted more kids than Brad Pitt.
yes, exactly. And it had the greatest staple of like late 80s, early 90s, which was diversity. Yeah. Everyone was represented, but they didn't make a big deal about it. Just like, okay, they have two kids. Yeah, they have two kids of their own, and then they adopted a lot, and then, as always, you got to put some sort of kooky you got to have a monkey or a dog or something awesome in there to really add appeal. So Bionic 6 was a fantastic show. It's something that a lot of people over 30 really hold near and dear to them, even though it only aired for about 2 seasons. And I do not believe it ever got a proper DVD release either. So Shout Factory's downstairs. Go yell at them if you want one. So you can try to get it for them. All right.
What are you talking about?
Oh, Shout Factory knows everything. All right, so in the late 80s.
Rookie O'Hare!
Dimension, another time and space. A parallel universe is falling on its face. When out of the chaos, who else can it be? But the animal adventurers from S.A.G.E.Addicts. Bucky, Captain Bucky O'Hare. Mutants and aliens and toads beware. You're looking for adventure, well this is it. With Jenny, Deadeye, Blinky, and Willie to win. I said Bucky, Captain Bucky O'Hare.
Bucky O'Hare on the Toad War.
In the battle of the universe, you don't know what's next. You only know amphibians have made it complex. When you check out your scanner and the evil that it was, there's only one course of action. Focus some toad. Bucky, Captain Bucky O'Hare. He goes when an ordinary rabbit would dare. If your righteous indignation has suffered a hit, and your photon accelerator's broken a bit, and you're losing your mind and you're having a fit, get the funky fresh rabbit who can take care of it. Bucky, Captain Bucky O'Hare. Bucky, Bucky O'Hare. Let's crocus some toads.
Okay, for those who don't know, Bucky O'Hare was a comic book created by Larry Hama of G.I. Joe fame. It was one of the things he did when he kind of broke away, went with Neil Adams. So that show aired, I believe, 89, 90, and didn't run very long, but it had a lot of the, it was a kid show, but they did a few things that a lot of 80s shows didn't do. They killed off a character early on. They had the miniseries, and they had an 8 character. I'm kind of skewing his name at the moment. So the little kid you saw in the amongst all the other anthropomorphic animals in there, he was from Earth, our dimension, and Bucky O'Hare takes place in an alternate dimension, kind of like Earth-C in DC. So he finds a portal, goes through there, heads up with Bucky's buddies. There was a gorilla character who ends up sacrificing his life to save him. So that's why he's wearing that ape-like costume in order to carry on his memory. And the other gorilla is the gorilla's brother, who comes in to join the resistance to fight against the Toad Menace because they offed his brother. So, obviously. Yeah, obviously. Obviously.
Oh, God.
Ordinary teenagers. Until one day, we met some new friends from out of town.
Watch this, be like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
They were called dinosaurs. My friends and I became the secret scouts, allies to these dinosaurs from outer space, and joined in Exo from the evil Tyrannos. The dinosaurs are leaving, boss. Well, follow them!
All right. So the thing with this show ran on syndication very briefly, and then USA, the fledgling network in the late 80s, early 90s, picked it up and ran it forever. There's only 13 episodes in each week. They ran for like 3 years, and they just kept running it. Here's the gimmick to the show. So they're alien dinosaurs, and they're anthropomorphic. They evolved into more human-like characters. Their major power, they could de-evolve into real dinosaurs. That was the big draw. It was, I believe, called dino-sizing or something like that, where they would lose not their intelligence, but their limbs and everything else, and just become regular dinosaurs. The idea was that they gain their full strength back at it. But it kind of, even as a kid, you're saying, it's like, why would they want to go back if they have the ability to man lasers and all kinds of other cool stuff like that?
But at what cost?
Exactly. Well, no, that was the thing. The evil Tyrannos did not have that power, and that's what they're at war with them over, to have that power. It's like, so you want to de-evolve, you just want to get dumber. That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
They were just dumb. They were like most 80s films. They barely had the brain power to function, but they wanted less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the sky, his rockets ignite. Jets into battle, flying faster than light. Lord of the jungle, the hero who stalks. The beasts call him brother, the goes to war. Defenders of the earth, defenders. Master of magic spells and illusion. Enemies crumble in fear and confusion. And drink, defenders of the earth, defenders. His strength is a legend, his skills conquer all. Armed with his power, we never will fall. Defenders of the earth, defenders. With our new young heroes, proving their worth. For become 8, defending the earth. Defenders of the earth, defenders. Defenders of the earth.
This show was awesome.
Yeah.
This was pre Batman the Animated Series, and they took all those great pulp heroes and put them together in an Avenger-style show. Pretty much it had the same kind of tone as Batman and Superman did. Real fun, kind of, they took it serious. There was, and you had your goofy kids so the kids could relate to them. But back in the day, they were thinking like, man, Flash Gordon's gonna be awesome. There's gonna be 19 movies. I'm talking about the old Flash Gordon movie. So I believe that's what this came out of. They're like, well, let's do that, but let's not do that. So and this also ran for 65 episodes. This was back in the day when if you wanted to do a cartoon, you had to have an order of 65. That way you could do 5 days a week for, I think it's like 3 months or something like that. And then you can rerun them, so you can get like 3 runs out of the year or something like that. So yeah, that's unheard of. You don't do that. You get like 8 episodes and see how it goes, and then we move on from there. We will see how much money you can make us before, yeah. Okay, so this one is a particular favorite of mine growing up.
After years of peaceful existence on the distant planet Valoria, Questar and his people were forced into battle. The power of their step crystal ripped a hole in the fabric of time, sending them backward to prehistoric Earth. Unaware that at the same moment the evil Emperor Krulos was plotting to capture the step crystal with his own grotesque Rulon forces. And so, the battle continues in a new place and time with Dino Riders.
Now, the cartoon was great, but the toy line was even better. These were the greatest things. I was 4 years old when these things came out, and you put dinosaurs with lasers on their heads. And it was like crack cocaine for a child. Like, I could not get enough. They had a T-Rex that was like 18 inches, and this thing was fully motorized. It came with 900 like packs to put on this thing. So, and the beauty was there was a button that would unfurl all of them, so it would have like, if you had the Diplodocus that fought it, you can open up the side pack and pretend you're having a war with it, which pretty much was the sell for 80's. Violence, everything was violence. You could have an attack mode, and you could push the button and everything would fly off, and the T-Rex would be free, and you walk off and everything like that. So, yeah, those are awesome. The guy that actually wrote the show Bible for this show is downstairs. His name is Donald F. Galt. He's actually going to be doing a dinosaur-related panel with me on Sunday if any of you want to come and, chit-chat with him. He's a cool dude. He also wrote, I believe, some of the story Bible for the originals Masters of the Universe as well. All right, so we're going to move into the 90's a little bit with this.
Yeah! Woo!
Okay, the co-creator of this is also downstairs too, if you want to go talk to him. This show was one of the first shows that was like, okay, Ren and Stimpy are doing something with comedy, and we can kind of start skewing the jokes instead, from dopey, slapped in the face jokes to a little more subversive humor. So, who here likes regular show? Okay, and eventually all that kind of stuff comes from these guys slowly kind of inching their way into the psyche, like where kids can start picking up on like a little more risque humor. Another little tidbit is the other co-creator of this is Savage Steve Holland, and he's the guy that directed Better Off Dead. So if anybody like that movie, yeah, that's where so little trivia. Okay, now it gets a little manly up in here.
Quest to undo the spell of living stone cast upon his family by driving the evil serpent men back into another dimension and vanquishing their leader, the cruel wizard Raphamon.
This show was badass. This is the greatest example of syndication versus a network show. Syndication is pretty much, different networks are buying up stuff for their free time that they are not programming. So you can get away with a lot of other stuff because there's no network knows. They're just like, okay, we have a show for you. Here, you can buy it. There's 65 episodes. That'll get you a run through. Conan, mind you, one of the few, in the 80s, it was popular to make cartoons out of R-rated movies. And not just, mild R, hard R movies. Rambo got a cartoon. RoboCop got a cartoon. This got a cartoon. Now, mind you, Conan was a pulp character well before the Schwarzenegger movie. Even then, the books are still very graphic. So they took what they could, and they pretty much, spaced it out. It's like, okay, this is a definite boy cartoon. This is for boys like 8 to 15 who are getting up in the morning before school. This is what they're going to watch. They pretty much, they pulped it to the nth degree. Like, it was a continuous storyline. It was episodic, but there was an overall continuity. The main character you see, Rathmon, they eventually do beat him. Like, halfway through the show, he gets defeated. Here's the thing: all those other characters they introduced all had their own arch nemesis. That Conan was like, "Well, you help me, I'll go help you murder this guy." So, and that's each episode. There was the wizard whose brother and sister got turned into feral wolves, and so his quest, my Conan is like, my parents are stoned. My brother and sister got turned into wolves, so let's help each other out. So that's pretty much how it ran. So yeah, each of the characters came in. They all had the gimmick of it was. Rathamon needed starmen, which were meteors. They were forging weapons. He was building pretty much a Stargate to bring his serpent god into the main world. So the ironic thing was that the same metal could undo any magic that the wizard, did. So that would reveal. So if they got near this metal, the minions of Rathamon would turn back into their lizard form, and then instead of killing them when you slashed them with it, it teleported them back into their null dimension. So that's how they got away with straight up murdering folks on TV.
Bastard. Love this show.
This is a red one?
Street boys, get on the planet, and then a jam, a diabolical plan of only one man. Some Paradigm and International. And an army of 3 A's of heat people.
Yeah, invaders, about the boys and the guy who made it. Zoolander, master of boy spots.
We want to run the block. We're the sports boys, and we like making noise. The shot back, the intelligent boy.
And I can taste the heat, but don't forget, you're what you eat.
Watson, let me swivel and say, I rock to the dock and I save the day.
And is the name, and the brain is the name. Genesis, any problem I can fix.
My name's Ninjas, the battle hinges on how I use my sword and what it singes.
I'm Zoolander, ZC for short, I fight the corp, I'm the boss master. Listen up, you all, you're the boys brigade. When it's laser time, put on the 3D shade. Laser time, boys!
All right, this show was a show made to sell toys. Yes, if you notice, Avi Arad's name was at the beginning of that. He was running Toy Biz at the time too. So one of the things he helped do was let's make cartoons to help sell toys, and vice versa. So he didn't create the show, but it was one of the things. It's like we need to push that out. What do kids like? They love robots. Transformers is big. So this show was a legitimately good show, much like how He-Man was very much a commercial for the toys. Excuse me. This very much was in the same way, but they actually put some care and effort into it. So pretty much is the main character you see worked for a giant conglomerate. It was very anti-corporate. And he created the robot technology the world uses today. It turns out he finds out his big bosses are like, we're gonna take over the world using this stuff. And he's like, I can't have that. So he goes underground because he's pretty much the one guy that knows how to build AI. And they don't know how to build AI. So they can only use what he's left behind. He builds all these guys, and they become an underground freedom force of overthrowing this, this corporate entity. The big gimmick to this, though, if you bought the toys, it came with special 3D glasses. So every time they said laser time, it went into that weird 3D round effect, and you put on the glasses, and it would look like I'm looking at this through red and blue. So, yes, sir.
That concept was done before. Remember a show called Captain Power?
Yes, yes.
That was really cool.
It was, yeah. The figures would interact. Like,
did Babylon 5 creators.
J. Michael Straczynski, yes. So yeah, so very much, but unlike Captain Power, who the toys properly interacted with this, the glasses really did nothing. Much like in Simpsons, the goggles do nothing. The show was still cool though, and you got a dizzying effect whenever they did the super action sequences.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody here remember this show? Do you remember how amazing it was? Yes.
Yes. That's all the animation from the show. They didn't make an opening, they just cut together scenes. Like, the animation was beautifully done. It was Japanese, it was done in Japan. The storytelling was fantastic. To me, there's only 3 Peter Pans in the world. There's the Disney one, there's Robin Williams, and then there's this one. There's only 3 Captain Hooks. There's the Disney one, there's Dustin Hoffman, and then there's the Tim Curry one that did this, who actually had a whole catchphrase. It was Oggs, Boggs, Hammer, and Togs. That was his swearing whenever he got mad at Peter for thwarting whatever scheme he was going to this week. So
you didn't like Christopher Walken?
No, that was terrible. God awful in every way. Yes, it was. It was 1990. It predated Hook. Yes.
We were wondering.
Yeah. So, and the beauty in this, much like the Disney version, all the Lost Boys could fly. Everyone, they really played with a lot of the mythology that J.M. Barrie had created for Peter Pan.
It was a golden age for all mankind. Using the incredible exoskeletons called E-frames, we had successfully terraformed Venus and Mars and were poised to move on to the outer planets. Suddenly, it all ended. We were pressed into a nightmarish war on a scale previously unimagined. We were attacked by our own creations, the Neo-Sapiens, a race of artificially created humans. Led by Phaeton, they have seized control of Venus, Earth, and Mars. This is Lieutenant J.T. Marsh, member of the Exo Fleet, leader of a small band of E-frame pilots dedicated to freeing humanity from Neo-Sapien rule. We are the Exo Squad.
So now you probably think this is Battlestar Galactica. No. It's very, but it's not. But they actually did bring they licensed Robotech for the vehicles over here in America as part of the last wave of the figures. Again, figures were awesome. Now, here's another thing. The reason why this show is so awesome, it was sold in syndication. But it was created by the same men that created X-Men the animated series. They were co-producing this at the same time. So when I sat down with one of the co-creators of X, the showrunner, he told me, he's like, yeah, the Fox gave us to do the first 13 episodes. We didn't know there was gonna be any more after that. So take that in. They threw Beast under the bus and didn't know they were gonna do any more on that show. Mm-hmm. So while they're waiting, they're like, we need to do something else. It was like a 1.5 year wait in between the shows. So we went off and created Exo Squad.
So the showrunner for X-Men had to leave Exo Squad after the first season, and his buddies took over, and he came back to run X-Men for the remainder of the seasons. That's why Exo Squad's a great show, because these guys were like, we were given more freedom than we were on X-Men. I think, again, they kill off major characters in the show. Like, people die. It's all intergalactic civil war on its finest level.
Parachutes in this one.
No, there weren't. Even though you really kind of like have to buy back the whole space vacuum thing, they really kind of just bypass that.
Details.
Semantics.
There's a time when the moon reveals its face through the clouds. I let out a sigh and want to cry out loud. But deep in my heart, I feel love so alive. In the depths of my soul, I know we will survive. And the one they would break in their greed and their pride. But deep in my heart, I feel love so alive. In the depths of my soul, I know we will survive.
Now, does anybody remember this show? Okay. Yeah, the intro. This fantastic show. Now, the beauty of this was it wasn't made for American audience. It's based on an Argentinian comic book. There was a very weird live action series was made because the comic book was made in the early 90s. It's pretty much about a escaped Nazi scientist in Argentina, because a few of them went down there, and his experiment, Cyber 6, is one of them. He was into human cloning, all kinds of other stuff. So she escapes. Leads a double. Her secret identity is a male high school teacher. Like, she dresses as a dude. Yeah, and her friend, her love interest, talks with her male counterpart all the time. Can't tell the difference. So, and he digs her as in her superhero, S&M leather gear, and he doesn't tell. Much like Clark Kent, it's like can't tell the difference. So, the cartoon kind of navigates across the whole Nazi thing. Like, if you know what they are. Like there's a little a boy character named Jose in it. He's the general kind of guy, and he walks around with the SS march and everything in it. They don't mention a lot of stuff because this was meant for Canadian audiences originally, and it was picked up by Fox after its initial run. So it was only 13 episodes. Fox was like, just throw it over here. You could fill in the time gap. So it's actually on DVD. You can get it on Amazon, but it's getting ridiculously expensive because Discotic only put out one run of it, so it's like $30 now. But they all are technically on YouTube if you want to look at them that way.
Extraordinary, freakazoid, runs around in underwear, freakazoid, she's Washington DC, freakazoid, and a son that never on TV, freakazoid, his brain's overloaded, it has a junction coding, textbook case for Sigmund Freud, freakazoid.
Check out Dexter Douglas, nerd computer ace. When surfing on the internet, there was not the cyberspace. He turned into the freakazoid, strong and super quick. He drives up letters crazy, cause he's a lunatic.
His home base is the fake on air, freakazoid, freakazoid, toy the bomb and cuts his hair, freakazoid, chimpanzee, rides around in the paperweight, freakazoid, wants to make a movie game, freak of me, freak of you, he's here to save the nation, so stay tuned to the station, if not we'll be uninformed, freakazoid.
This is a show that doesn't get the love it gets because its predecessors were Animaniacs and Peaky and the Brain. Yeah. Now, those are beloved shows. I'm pretty sure everyone here loves Animaniacs and Peaky and the Brain. This was on a whole nother level. This only ran 2 seasons, but the comedy writing was just immensely tight. Like, every episode, if something doesn't make you nearly have an aneurysm from laughing, then clearly you have no soul and a black heart because you don't get the joy the Freakazoid brought. It was completely out there. It was stoner humor without the stonerisms to it. So, it is pretty much. It very much does. As I said earlier, the shows like that we see on Cartoon Network today, like actually, if anything owes its popularity to it, it's Invader Zim. Gets a lot of the same humor from this show. So, let's move on. We're starting to get to the. We're past this one in the 80s, but I do love it.
It's another attack! They're not human! Who can stop them? Earth core, I hope!
Can Earth core stop this evil before it's too late?
Okay, so if you could take a guess if I lost my mind over Dino Riders, you can take a guess I lost my mind over this show as a kid, too. It only ran for 13 episodes. It was an initial miniseries, and then there were, I think it was like 5, and then there was like 7 other episodes after that. So it was one movie that they created so they could put on VHS and throw out there and sell some toys. This was a Hasbro property. They packaged this. If any syndicated network picked the show up, they got Gem with it, too. So it was, yeah. So it was you had both at the same time. So when you have a 4 to 10-year-old boy watching Inhumanoids, afterwards Gems, usually it's like, well, there's another thing on, so I guess I'm watching Gem right now. So that I firmly believe this is why there's a bigger male fan base for Gem than a lot of people really let on. When you bring up Gem, you guys are like, yeah, I watched Gem. Misfits are awesome, yeah. Rio was hot. So of all the things Hasbro's been bringing back, they've been dragging everything out of the mud. That they were like, we got Micronauts, let's pull that out of there. This is one of the last few things I've been begging them to bring back. It's like, we live in this post-Legendary Godzilla world now. This would sell. Like,
if they're going to give it to Michael Bay, they can keep
No.
it.
Let Legendary take it. They're doing all the monster stuff right now, because pretty much it was a core of scientists who built Iron Man-like suits to go underground and fight these Earth-like demigods and meet up with Ents and tree people and stuff like that, and rock characters who can control the polar magnetic fields and stuff like that. It was weird as hell. And it had zombies in it too. The big yellow guy, his name was Decompose. He scratches you, you turn into a zombie. Sometimes a giant zombie, sometimes a teeny tiny zombie. And they showed the full zombification on television. It was a gory show. Wow. Like, he would scratch you and then people would yell, Decompose! He was voiced by Starscream too. Yeah. And they would turn into just walking piles of rotting flesh. And they would go and murder other people. And then you had Moltar, who would reach into his mouth to grab molten lava rocks and then toss them at people. And then you had the Cthulhu-like creature, is it Leisure? No, it wasn't, last year, something like that. It was, I'm blanking right now, my apologies. But so those were the 3 big Inhumanoids, and they were pretty much like a gang. Moltar was their leader, and pretty much a bunch of, they made a pact with a Lex Luthor kind of character to take over the world. So pretty much, it's insane. If you can find it, check it out. It is nutty.
Isn't it kind of weird, though, how in the 80s we were always like one group of super scientists or one group of fucking kids away from global annihilation?
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, there's no military or anything like that. It's just like, this small band right here will do it. Yeah, there we go.
When a mysterious explosion destroys an artificial intelligence lab, Adam Hollister is framed. His son, Jack Hollister, sets out to prove his father's innocence. Someone else had caused the explosion and had stolen an experimental computer brain. Merging it with his own brain, he transforms into the master criminal known as C.A.G.E.Addicts. To fight C.A.G.E.Addicts and his evil bioborgs, Jack Hollister becomes Sky Surfer 1, leader of the Sky Surfer Strike Force. Crazy stunts. Slice dice. Air enforcer. Sore loser. The Sky Surfer Strike Force.
The show that wanted to be anime but was not anime. The animation was done by a Japanese animation studio, but the actual show animation was done. So, but they had a lot of anime tropes to it. So it was like '94 when the show came out. So anime really wasn't predominant as it was today. So, but the guys that were like huge fans of like Robotech and stuff like that. So like, we want to do something like that. I think. Did you have
What do
something?
you think of when they changed the intro?
Yeah. At least you know.
The character designs are so amazing.
Now, speaking of anime from the 90's.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
The invaders attack on year 2087.
The Space Knights are all that stands between Darkon and the destruction of Earth.
Earth shall belong to me!
You'll never get this planet as long as I am here to defend it.
The Earth belongs to the human race, and we're not about to let the Venomoids or anyone else take it away from us.
When I descend upon the Earth, darkness will unfurl its banner across yet another region of the cosmos.
Now, this was a Saban Brands property. They were like, hey, live action was great. Let's get into some animation. Yeah, they had to change a few things because there was a transvestite character on this show at the time that they're like, it's 1995, 96, we're not ready for this yet. So she made a full-on girl. Little note, Bryan Cranston's one of the voices in this show for an arc. Because he worked for Saban. He did a few episodes of voicing the monsters for Power Rangers. The main bad guy, not Darkon, but the Slade's brother in the show, the Red Techno Man, was voiced by Bulk from Power Rangers. So yeah, and he is awesome in it too. I'm surprised he doesn't do more voice acting.
That was neat.
Yeah. So speaking of anime,
Fantastic battle armored samurai.
I prefer this opening to the Japanese one.
Together, they face the otherworldly forces of the evil dynasty. Calling on the spirits of ancient samurai warriors. All five have been given super-powered fighting skills and weapons to wield against this tyranny. Justice! Light! Wisdom! Trust! Heroes pushed to the limits. A struggle between good and evil. And the fate of humanity hangs in the balance.
My butt was up at 6 o'clock every weekday morning to watch this show. Yes, this show was awesome. This was a Sunrise production, the company that made Cowboy Bebop and the Gundam series. So this was like one of the last few non-Gundam things they did for a while until they came back and did Cowboy Bebop. So that's what everything's about. It's awesome. You can watch the American dub, it's great, and the Japanese one is fine. So. Speaking of R-rated adaptations, I can only find a clean copy of Russian, so that's why we're doing the voiceover. So yeah, So pretty much this was it was StarCraft pretty much at the time. I was huge into StarCraft. This show was awesome. It took some of the stuff from the movie and the book and kind of combined them. Yeah.
It kind of, to me, paved the road for Clone Wars.
Very much so. And
also, this same company did a very underrated Spider-Man cartoon that came on MTV.
oh yeah, yes.
Took the character seriously because it usually picked up after the first Kill the Bar movie, but never found its audience.
Okay, I got like 3 more, and then I think we got it. That's it. Okay, so yeah, I got time for 3 more. So I got to show you this. Animal. Yeah. In this show, you were talking about violence. This show was violent.
It was fine with not violence, what?
Yeah. No, it was. People were being eaten horribly in the show. There's actually a. They're bringing it back.
The one thing that boggles my mind is where do they find the damn thing? Super scientists?
Yeah.
Neither of them are scientists.
Okay, so my last 2, I save these for the best, or for my favorite.
Yeah.
The medalist opening of all time in any
From the
cartoon.
field of the future, a new king will come to save the world of the past.
Another Abbey Arad joint too. Essentially, it was Power Rangers with King Arthur, though. Yeah. And time travel. There's always time travel. You have a team of football players who knew nothing about jousting or anything like that, thrown into being the stand-ins for Arthur and the Knights of Justice. And much like any football player you would in the 90s, they were great at it because they're athletic. Yes.
Yeah, they learned all from Magical Gear.
If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who you gonna call? If there's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna call? That's right.
Things on this one. This is the last one because I absolutely love this show. I'm a Ghostbusters nut like many people. This show, originally when I heard it, it's like, oh, come on. This show had any right. It was better than any right it had to be. Sony's animation in the 90s, this is the same studio that did Men in Black the series, Godzilla, Jackie Chan Adventures, Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot.
Yeah.
They pumped out awesome on a continuous basis. And Richard Raines, I believe, was the executive producer who has worked on every single Simpsons that there is. So the other thing is, that's Darkwing Duck singing the opening song. Yeah. So that's gonna be it. They're telling me I got the signs. You got time for one or two? Anything?
Yeah,
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Anybody? If anybody wants to throw in some comments right now, sit in the back.
Crossover with the original.
That was the last two episodes were the crossover of the original Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Lorenzo Music was dead at the time. He had just died, so they couldn't get Venkman to come back. So they had to do a different Venkman. Yes, sir.
Do you feel that these early cartoons inspired that whole rap metal concept?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Well, I mean, who didn't love Voltron back in the 80s that grew up? I've not heard of any rapper or athlete of color, if I may be politically correct, that did not love Voltron. Everyone loved Voltron. I've heard Voltron dropped in just about things I would never expect in a million years. Anything else? Just cartoons are awesome.
Yeah.
I brought stuff that I love that doesn't get a lot of play. If I can do this again next year, I'm going to bring stuff that was absolutely terrible. Yes. So, and believe me, there's a lot more of that than there is this. I have stuff I didn't have time to get to. I was running late, but even then I was like, well, I'm pushing the limit. So, as always, you can check out my sites, therealmcast.com. You can check out, I do like 3-4 podcasts, and I have a weekly news update podcast. I do a Flash rundown show for the CW Flash. We also do an Arrow one. We're going to do a Jessica Jones. We got a Daredevil one running right now. And as always, if you like giant monsters and anything Toho related, I also have a separate podcast called the Kaiju Kingdom Podcast. You can find that on panzercrush.com. It's our sister site for Realmcast. I'm actually off to go do another panel right now about oddball Marvel properties and movies. So if you want to see a thing about a Turkish Captain America movie, follow me over to I think it's room 501 or something like that. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming out.